The ladies of the WNBA have debuted some new game wear. T-shirts that say, "Pay us what you owe us." Now, for those of you who don't follow the WNBA, which is another way of saying all of you, you might not know that the WNBA is a subsidized sports league. It does not earn enough money to pay its players, so it has to be bailed out by the NBA, which lots of people watch, to the tune of $10 to $15 million annually. All of which brings into question the ladies' capacity, not just for basketball, but also for basic math. Because if the women were paid what they are owed, they would earn significantly less each year. Plenty of people have observed and made fun of that fact. What no one seems to understand is that the women's publicity stunt has almost nothing to do with money. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. 1 in 4 Gen Z workers regrets attending college. It's a shocking number. I'm shocked it's not even higher. We will get to those numbers and why they regret it in a moment. First, though, I want to tell you about ExpressVPN. Go to expressvpn.com/Knowles. Are you aware of House Bill Section 702? You better be, but I bet you're not. Well, I'll tell you anyway. It extends the right of government agencies to legally monitor American citizens without requiring a warrant. Congress just renewed it for another 2 years. While we might want to demand better privacy protections from the government, it's also important to take steps to protect yourself in the meantime. One significant way your privacy is compromised is through your browsing history. Your internet service provider tracks every website you visit, and if you live in America, they can legally share your data with other companies and government agencies. That is where ExpressVPN comes in. ExpressVPN is a virtual private network that reroutes all of my internet activity through secure, encrypted channels. That means no one, not government entities, not data brokers, not even the ISP, can access my online activity. I've used ExpressVPN for, 8-9 years now. It's great. It's even easy. Even I can do it. I'm a Luddite. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, which is the number that identifies you online. So you might say, okay, we need a better government. We need better protections. Yeah, sure. But until that happens, you can protect yourself like I do with ExpressVPN. Right now, if you go to expressvpn.com/Knowles, you get an extra 4 months of privacy for free. expressvpn.com/Knowles to get yourself an extra 4 months free. Pay us what you owe us. We have the clip, right? It's all these gals wearing these stupid t-shirts in the half-empty stadium. At least half-empty stadium. Pay us what you owe us. There it is. Dozens of people looking on. Well, not really looking, just kind of walking around, not paying any attention, blasé as could be. What's this about? Pay us what you owe us would mean that they make a lot less than they are paid because they are paid with charity from the NBA, which makes so much money because so many people watch it that the league actually pays the ladies because no one watches it. What exactly are the ladies rebuking with these t-shirts? A lot of people think they're rebuking the league for not paying them what they're worth. That's obviously not the case. I think it's deeper. I think at a deeper level, these basketball ladies are rebuking the fans, or the lack thereof, the people who are not fans. Pay us what you owe us. Well, they can't be paid what they think that they're owed because the league doesn't bring in any money. The league doesn't bring in any money because you're not watching it. You! Statistically, 100% of people that I'm talking to right now, both listening and watching this, do not watch the WNBA. So it's a rebuke of you. You owe, in these women's minds, I'm quite confident, you owe them your eyeballs. You owe them your attention. And at a deeper level even than that, this is a rebuke of reality. The women feel as though they are owed something that reality is contradicting. They think that they should be a really popular sports league, that they should be as big and famous as the NBA. But they're not because they're women and the NBA is full of men. And watching men play basketball is much more interesting than watching women play basketball because men are physically much, much stronger than women and faster and more agile, and women are not. And so what this is a rebuke of is reality, which despite 60 years of feminism, centuries of feminism really, if you go back to Mary Wollstonecraft, despite all that feminism, men and women are still different, and men are still better at certain things than women are. Women are better at other things than men. But basketball is one of the things that the men are better at. That's really what this is about. The resentment that you see in the pay us what you owe. These people, they make more money than a lot of people do at least. But the resentment you're seeing is not really a resentment for some basketball executive or even for the audience. It's a resentment of reality. And if your ideology, this is the final point on it, and it's applicable to everyone out there. If your ideology leaves you resentful of reality, as all leftism and liberalism do to some degree, you should probably find a different ideology. This is what Marx says in the 11th thesis on Feuerbach. He says, philosophy until this point has sought to understand the world, but the point is to change it. But you can't really change the world because the world is as it is. Nature is as it is, and it's immutable. So if you want to have a good life, you can understand the world and live within it. Now, speaking of philanthropy, speaking of charity, speaking of money, Milana Vaintrub. You've probably never heard that name. She's the girl from the AT&T commercials. I'm sure if you saw one of the cell phone commercials, you would recognize her. She's an actress. She's most famous for selling cell phones. She has just started a philanthropic site. I shouldn't say, is maybe overstating it. A philanthropic naughty pictures website. It's called OnlyPhilanthropy. Not only fan, only philanthropy. Okay. Why did she do this? She says, I did another flirty photo shoot, and I want to do something good with it again. In March, you helped me fundraise for a single mom who lost everything in the LA fire, and I think we should do it again. This time, I'm hoping to fulfill over 30 GoFundMes for disabled families affected by the same fire. With your help. Turns out this little only philanthropy experiment actually worked. So, shall we do it again? This is how it works. You give, I give a few flirty pics. Wink, wink. We help people who really need it. Let's trade some playful, exclusive content for real-world impact. Link in bio. So notice a couple things here that raise your eyebrows. She says she wants to be a philanthropist. Great. Philanthropy is wonderful. Actually, all of you, or many of you, were very kind in donating toward a medical cause, a rare genetic condition that affects a lot of people, a lot of kids, including, it came to my attention because it affected my friend's kid who was just diagnosed with it. And many, many of you gave a ton of money. If you haven't yet, by the way, it's justgiving.com/page/cure4George. But anyway, that's philanthropy, where you give to help someone and you don't expect anything in return. Here, she says, here's how it works. You give and I give. So that's not really philanthropy. That's just a transaction. She's just selling you racy pictures of herself. She's selling you her own debasement. But then the first line here, this also should raise your eyebrows. She says, I did another flirty photo shoot, and I want to do something good with it again. Notice the order here. She isn't saying, I want to do something good, and therefore I did a flirty photo shoot that I'm sending to you if in exchange for money. She says, I took the quasi pictures, and now I want to do something good with it. Notice that the disordered behavior happens first, and then she justifies it by pretending it's charity. Here she is. Here's this woman, Milana Vaintrub, describing her philosophy of only philanthropy.
Because of you and your help and your contribution and your belief that we could do something silly to heal the world. That we could have this playful exchange, that I could give you something fun and exclusive, and you could contribute some money to help some people.
So you see the way it works in her mind. The way it works in her mind is, I'm doing a good thing. I'm doing a good thing because the money in the end is going toward needy people. And therefore, you don't need to pay any attention to the fact that there are all these kind of morally dubious things we do in the middle. Because all's well that ends well. because good ends justify immoral means. So she's not running a site or a racy pictures site. No. She's not selling her body for money. No. She's a philanthropist. But it's going to involve a little. And even just think about I don't want to go too deep into this, but imagine the process here. Who's giving the money? It's men. It's not women, presumably. The men want these racy pictures of this girl. So they're giving money so that she can degrade herself taking these pictures. And then what are the men going to do with those pictures? Are they just going to look at them once and then delete them and that's it and move on with their day and have a cappuccino? I don't know. I think it's going to cause disordered thoughts in their mind. Maybe it's going to cause disordered actions. And it's just the whole thing is kind of gross. This girl has now debased herself from a AT&T pitchman to a star. It's all gross. But it's for a good cause, right? So isn't it worth it? This is every deal with the devil. This is every single deal with the devil. The deal with the devil is you're going to do a bad thing, but it's going to turn out to have a good outcome. You're going to compromise yourself. You're going to do something immoral, but it'll probably work out. And the thing about the deal with the devil is it doesn't work out. All sorts of immoral, bad stuff along the way, and you usually don't even get the thing you hoped for in the end. I think that's what's going on here. This is the apotheosis of the modern utilitarian consequentialist idea that says the end justifies the means. We're now going to have charity sites. Is that good? Do you want your daughter doing porn charity? Do you think that's good? When you're teaching her about spiritual and corporal works of mercy, when you're teaching her to give alms to the poor, are you going to say, and that's why you should do, because as long as you get some sweet lucre, some of that filthy money, then any action is justified. I don't think so. We got to get rid of OnlyFans, but we should get rid of OnlyPhilanthropy too. You want to give money to the poor? Give money to the poor. What's the matter with you? What is the matter with you? Now, speaking of the disordered desires of men, there's this idea that what every man wants is some much younger bimbo. That's the ideal partner for a man. And there's a study that's just come out that actually contradicts this. We'll get to that in one moment. First, I want to tell you about Leaf Filter. You need to go to leaffilter.com/Knowles. It is finally summer, and while you're enjoying the sunshine, your gutters might be quietly filling with debris. This season, relax knowing your home can be protected with Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection company. I'll notice, this is actually before Leaf Filter joined the show, I was having problems with my gutters. And the rain was coming down all weird. And I thought back, I said, I haven't cleaned my gutters ever. And with Leaf Filter, you don't really have to. You don't have to worry about all that costly damage. You don't have to clean your gutters. That's something really worth enjoying. Right now, you get a free inspection, free estimate, save up to 30% off your entire purchase at leaffilter.com/Knowles. An investment in Leaf Filter is an investment engineered to protect your whole home. Summer brings heavy rainfall that can overwhelm clogged gutters, can lead to flooding, roof damage, even foundation issues. Don't try those DIY stupid fixes. Right now, do not spend your summer worrying about gutters. Schedule your free inspection. Get up to 30% off your entire purchase at leaffilter.com/Knowles, Canada WLAS, leaffilter.com/Knowles. That's free estimate, free inspection, 30% off at leaffilter.com/Knowles. See a representative for warranty details. So there's this idea out there. Now I really look like a toxic masculinity here, puffing on I need a big glass of whiskey or something. There's an idea out there that men, they want one thing and it's disgusting. That men, their ideal partner is a much, much younger bimbo. Some girl who's got nothing in between the ears, who just exists as a kind of extension of the male id, his darkest fantasies, and who's like 20 or something. Well, it turns out, there's a report out from the Institute for Family Studies that is not true. And the headline I think is actually a little bit misleading, but the headline says, high status men are attracted to ambitious women. So it says, you're probably familiar with the common argument, men would prefer an attractive younger woman over an ambitious woman close to their age. This argument suggests that when given a choice, men don't prefer to marry women with career ambitions. I actually don't think it suggests that, but that's an interpretation of the author of the piece. Well, the Institute for Family Studies used data on almost 1.5 million married men in the U.S. 2019 to 2023 and their wives and found out, no, that's not true. Turns out that men with the most relationship options, that means wealthier men, higher social status men, marry women who are close to them in age and with high educational attainment. And that the relationships with large age gaps are more common for low-income men than for high-income men. Far from being a sign of wealth, marrying a much younger woman is associated with men who struggle to find a partner until later in life. So the real story is simpler. What almost everyone wants in a marriage partner is someone who shares their outlook on the world. If you're an ambitious striver, you're probably interested in marrying an ambitious striver. Or, and this is crucial, or somebody complementary to one. So this is where I think the headline gets it totally wrong. It says that if you're a professionally ambitious man with high educational attainment, though we'll get to the value of educational attainment momentarily when we talk about Gen Z. But if you're that kind of guy, you're going to want a woman who's exactly the same. But that's not actually what the study finds. It finds that you either want someone who is like that, that's the lib men in that category, or you want a woman who is complementary to that. That's the right option. That's what you really need. Because if you're a workaholic, if you're a guy, very professionally ambitious, you work long hours, if you have a wife who's like that, then no one's with your kids. So either you won't have kids or your kid is going to be raised at the daycare or with the nanny forever. You're going to neglect your kids. It's not going to work. But that doesn't mean that you have to marry a woman who's nothing like you. You can marry a woman who has high educational attainment, who is quite ambitious, but whose ambition is complementary. It's a different kind of ambition. The ambition of the men is to be generally like men are, and the ambition of the women is to be generally like women are. And it understands that men and women are different. But why is this? This kind of contradicts the Andrew Tate view of the world, that men don't want to get married. Marriage has nothing for men. Men don't want a woman who's close to their age. Men want a young bimbo, basically. It seems to me, though I'm not super familiar with his view of life, that seems to me what he's saying. But that actually isn't borne out in the surveys. So why is it? Well, it goes back to old Aristotle is why. It goes back, forget about having a girlfriend. It goes back to just having a friend. Aristotle understands friends to be like another self. A true friend is like another self. That's what Aristotle says. And that sounds navel-gazing and selfish, and it doesn't really need to be. As Aristotle also famously says, there are three kinds of friends. Friendships of pleasure, you like the same stuff. Friendships of utility, where it's networking, where you convenience, transactional, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And then true friendship, which is friendship of the good, where it's two people who see the world in the same way, who are both pursuing some good that is external to them. And which is why, with a true friend, sometimes you can finish each other's sentences. You can have whole conversations you barely speak, because you know exactly where the other person's coming from. And in a good marriage, in a true marriage, in a Christian marriage, it's going to be like that. I don't like that sappy line that you sometimes hear at weddings. Oh, I married my best friend. I think, no, hold on. I have my best friend. My best friend is like Billy or whatever, Bob. He's my best friend. And I have my wife. And I don't need to go out, to the pool hall or whatever kids do these days. I don't need to go to the cigar bar with my wife. I go to the cigar bar with my buddy. I'll go to my home or on a romantic dinner with my wife. But I'm overselling it a little bit. A good wife really should be a friend. It should be someone who looks at the world the same way, who is virtuous, who is pursuing the good, and who is another self. Because the looks are going to fade. And if you ditch your wife, or if you do the Andrew Tate thing, you don't even have a wife. If you just ditch these women after they turn 25, the Leonardo DiCaprio strategy, well, you're going to wind up lonely. You're going to wind up awful lonely because you won't have another self. And you won't have true friendship because true friendship has to be grounded in virtue. It can't just be transactional. It can't just be about ephemeral pleasures. You're going to be missing out on the fullness of a human experience. So it's true, sometimes these people say, well, in the animal kingdom, the man just, bangs anything that moves, pardon my vulgar language, but we're talking about the animal kingdom, so I guess it should be kind of vulgar. In the animal kingdom, the alpha has a harem of females and then moves on when it's no longer, right, yeah, if you want to be like a gorilla, be like a gorilla. But human beings don't have to be like that because we are like animals in that we are bodies, but we're like angels in that we're rational. We, unlike gorillas, can reason about justice and friendship and charity and all the rest of it. So you can do that. You can debase yourself to be like a gorilla, but I don't recommend it. You don't have to. You're a human being. And most people, the vast majority of people throughout history, they seem to be on the human side of things. Okay. Now, speaking of Aristotle and higher education, 1 in 4 Zoomer workers regrets going to college. We'll get to that in a moment. First, I want to tell you about Stopbox USA. Go to stopboxusa.com, use code Michael. If you are a responsible gun owner, you know the struggle. You want your firearm secure from kids and guests, but when you need it, you don't want to be fumbling with keys or codes while your heart's racing. That is why Stopbox USA created the Stopbox Pro. It's totally mechanical, no batteries to die, no electronics to glitch, no apps to crash, just a brilliant 5-button system that is unique to you. Once you got it down, muscle memory takes over. No thinking, just reacting. I love them so much. I have one here at the office, okay? Here's the cool part. Everything is made right here in the USA, so you're supporting American jobs and getting quality craftsmanship you can trust. The Stopbox Pro is also TSA compliant, so you can travel with confidence. And they've got vehicle safes, chamber locks, and other great gear to keep you prepared wherever life takes you. For a limited time only, our listeners are getting a crazy deal on Stopbox. Get 10% off your entire order when you use code Michael. For even better savings, shop their bundles for their best deals on their best-selling products. Check out their bundles and save an exclusive 10% off site-wide when you use code Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, at stopboxusa.com. Discover a better way to balance security and readiness with Stopbox. Folks, so often in high-profile cases and conspiracies, all we get are a few redacted documents and a litany of theories from sources close to the story that never pan out. But other times, you get to sit down face-to-face with someone who was actually there. Like in this latest episode of Michael And, where I sat down with a former P. Diddy escort who was named in the trial. His stories will blow you away. Check out this teaser.
So I don't know who I'm seeing. And so I show up to the address, I go up to the door, knock, and she opens the door.
So you say it's very performative.
She's like, okay, sit there. She puts the towel down. She's like, hey, just pour the baby oil all over me. And I see like the little slit in the room. There were times in the sessions where I saw that demon, the demon that she talked about.
Personal demon, these are the demons that are afflicting me, or Diddy.
Yeah, Diddy.
You actually did this stuff. Your name and your picture were revealed in court.
Revealed in court, and then it was started to go mainstream when 50 posted that picture.
So this guy is a sex-crazed animal.
She was under his control.
Because there's video of him beating her in a hallway.
I was supposed to be there that night. I was supposed to.
Watch the full episode right now on the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. For the uncensored ad-free version, subscribe to DailyWire Plus. Before I get to the Zoomers working, just another little puff on. Breakfast of Champions, especially, very important with this cigar, that you retrohale. You breathe a little touch out your nose. It'll open up the flavor a lot. Okay, why is it that a quarter of Gen Z workers regret attending college? This, according to a new survey by Resume Genius, 23% of full-time Zoomer workers regret attending college. 19% say their degree did not contribute to their career. Some of you are going to be saying, well, I expect the number to be higher. It should be 75% regret going to college. But a quarter is a lot, especially when you consider that a lot of these kids went into debt to go to college. Some of them took out hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to go get a degree in marketing or a degree in political science or something at whatever, Palookaville College. And then they come out and they get a job and they regret going. Why? Well, it's that second part there. It's like 19% say their degree did not contribute to their career. The reason they have regret, almost the same number. More regret it than admit this, but a full 1 in 5 almost say their degree didn't contribute to their career, is because they went in with bad expectations. I've said this before, I'll say it again, though it's not popular. The purpose of a university education is not to learn how to do a job. It's not to get a career. It's not to learn any particularly useful skill. It's to read dusty old books and think in the abstract and ultimately to make sense of your freedom. At a deep level, the purpose of a university education is not for the 8 to 14 hours a day that you're going to spend working. It's for all the other hours. It's for your leisure time. It's what to do when you are not obligated to work, when you are free. This is why we call it the liberal arts. And it helps you to become free. This is like, what we have today in colleges is like, it's like Christian rock. I know I'm going to offend some listeners, but I hate Christian rock. I hate it. I hate it so much. And it's like Christian rock, because the idea of Christian rock is, hey, if we meld these two things that are not alike one another at all, we're going to make both of them better. But that's not really what happens. Christian rock is actually diminishing both of Christianity and rock music. Christian rock is like the worst of both worlds. It's not, Christian rock is not better than any other rock music of like caliber. It's not better. And Christian rock is not nearly as good as any other kind of Christian music ever written. Going back to the first century, it's not better. It's just, it makes it all worse. So today, we have these universities that are in practice trade schools. But unlike actual trade schools, they don't really teach you a trade. And unlike actual universities, you don't read the great books. And you don't, at least don't read them seriously, and don't read them in a way that gives you an integrated sense of the world, such that what you learn in physics tells you something about what you learn in English, which tells you something about what you learn in math, which tells you something about what you learn in philosophy, which ultimately should tell you something about what you learn in theology, which is the queen of the sciences. And there, you don't even study theology almost any at the time now. Kind of crazy. University, I mean, this is the argument made by St. John Henry Newman in The Idea of a University, but the university purports to be an institution of universal knowledge, and at best, modern universities ignore the source and summit of all knowledge, God, and usually they criticize God or mock God, or so what do they can't seriously purport to universal knowledge. So yeah, no wonder these kids regret their education. It was a waste. But it didn't have to be a waste. It's not a waste for the reason they think it is. Modern university education is not a waste because it doesn't affect your career. Modern education is a waste because it doesn't affect the rest of your life. And by affecting the rest of your life, by the way, it should also affect your professional career, because it should allow you to see the world differently and impel you to act differently within it. Big waste. Expect that number to go up, by the way, in the coming years. Now, speaking of the economy, it's very hard to smoke while you talk on a show. Have you ever noticed that? And so if I were a professional, I would just talk. I would let the cigar go out. But the cigar is too good. The Mayflower Dream is just too good. So sorry, you're going to have to wait for my puffs. Breakfast of Champions. Really good news on the economic front. The recession odds have fallen to the lowest level ever recorded, according to Polymarket. The odds of a U.S. recession have fallen to their lowest level, dropped from 70% in late April to just 19% this week. It's ever recorded on Polymarket. Looking really nice. Do you remember back on Liberation Day when we were told that Trump tariffs were going to go into effect, then the tariffs did go into effect, and people lost their minds, and all the analysts freaked out, and the market dropped, and the bond market went crazy, and everyone said, we are now headed to recession. And this is it. The walls are closing in on Trump. This is finally it. Plenty of people say, I'm turning on Trump now. And then what happened? It was a total tempest in a teapot. The economy today looks better than it did back then. And the economy is probably kind of the market was a little overvalued, I think, back then, even at the end of the Biden administration. This might have corrected it. This is what Trump was talking about with the panic hands. And it's why sometimes when Trump says or does anything, you have all these neurotic people just freaking out. Well, I don't care if it's bombing Iran. I don't care if it's the economy. I don't care if it's some new immigration policy. I don't care if it's some tweet about football, which we'll get to momentarily because Trump has some of those too. They freak out. They lose their minds. And all these people say, I've supported Trump in the past. Usually it's people who've supported Trump for 6 minutes. So listen, I've supported Trump, but I'm turning on Trump now. These guys, these libertarians, the former left-wing guys, say, listen, I was a Trump supporter. Yeah, you were a Trump supporter from late October 2024 to the first week of November 2024. You've been a huge lib or libertarian or never Trumper the whole rest of the time. But and now I'm turning my support. And I always say, whenever these things happen, I say, give it a breather. Even on the Epstein files, there are people who had supported Trump for somewhat longer, saying, I'm turning on him now. I said, just give it a breather, man. He gets it. He listens. He sees things. Don't worry. Don't worry. He's done pretty well, though, these last 10 years. He managed to win the highest office in the land on his first shot, his first real attempt at any political office. Just give it a breather. But then the problem is, this is what happens with the newspapers. The newspaper reports some BS story, and everyone reads it. And then it turns out not to be true, and they print the retraction 2 months later on the last page of the newspaper, and no one reads it. It's the same thing here. So it's very important to point this stuff out. Many, many people on television and their fancy ties, they were saying 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 1 month ago, the economy is going to collapse because of Trump. Lowest level ever recorded when looking at recession odds on Polymarket. Keep that in mind next time. Now, speaking of what could have been, Hunter Biden, it's fitting to smoke things for this. Hunter Biden has just done a long-form interview. He did not hold back. I really wish I could have gotten the interview, but I didn't. I didn't even think it was possible. And this gives you so much insight into the present state of the Democrat Party. Folks, we are celebrating a decade of Daily Wire, 10 years of fighting the culture war and building something real. How are we celebrating? We're growing fast. More members, more shows, new voices like Isabel Brown, new documentaries like Journey to the UFC, the Joe Pyfer story premiering this Friday. Not just a fight doc, a blueprint for becoming unstoppable. From nothing to UFC stardom, through trauma, pain, no excuses. Our members get it all first. The announcements, the first looks, the full truth. No censorship or hidden agenda, just common sense and a community that has it. Do not sit this out. Celebrate a decade of the Daily Wire. Go to dailywireplus.com. Join today. The producer's favorite comment yesterday. I didn't pick this one. The producers picked it. We're going to see if it's a good comment. Kim Tate, 2285. This was worth watching the first 40 minutes just to get to Michael's great impersonations. Thank you. I did Obama. Did I do Obama yesterday? Yeah, you're right. Hey, you want me to do my Hunter Biden impression? No, I'm joking. It's not a bong. It would be something harder than that. In any case, Hunter looks like he's back on it again because he is full of vinegar in this interview. So the interview is all sorts of different things. It's Hunter Biden's take on Joe, what happened to his dad before he was unceremoniously booted out of the top spot for Democrats. Then, what does Hunter Biden think of Trump's policies? And then, most interesting to me, what does Joe think about the present state of the Democrat, or what does Hunter think about the present state of the Democrat Party? Here is what Hunter Biden says about Joe's terrible performance during that debate that lost him the nomination for president.
I know exactly what happened in that debate. He flew around the world, basically, the mileage that he could have flown around the world 3 times.
Yeah.
He's 81 years old. He's tired as They give him Ambien to be able to sleep. He gets up on the stage, and he looks like he's a deer in the headlights.
Okay. First part, he's flying all around the world. That's true. It's hard. It's hard to fly around the world when you're 35, much less 81. Now, he had been flying a week prior, so I don't know that the jet lag 1 week before that debate totally explains why Biden was drooling on stage, especially when we'd seen him acting that way many other times throughout the presidency. But did you catch that bit at the end there? He goes, and, he was having trouble sleeping, so the docs gave him an Ambien, and, that's why he looked like a mummy. So the thing about being president is your medical examinations are public. Your medical information is of public interest. And so we can, for instance, subpoena the presidential physician to testify before Congress, like Kevin O'Connor, who testified before Congress and pled the Fifth against self-incrimination. asked if there was any cover-up about Joe Biden's terrible health, mental and physical. But also, we can look at the prescriptions that the president was prescribed. Ambien wasn't on there. So he says, yeah, they gave him Ambien, and he looked kind of, so hold on. I love Hunter. The fact that you're telling us this, that the president was taking a prescription drug that he was not prescribed, then of course raises the question, what other drugs were they giving him they didn't know about? I was at the State of the Union 2 years ago. I was there as a guest of my friend Andy Ogles. I was sitting not far behind the president, Biden at that time. And you might have seen it on TV, but it was pretty clear to those of us in the room. Biden walks out there and he just starts screaming in monotone for like 45 minutes. I realized I don't have an ashtray, so you know what? I'm going to have to ash on my desk. It's okay. Maybe in my candle. No, I don't want to ruin my candle that way. He gets up there. I said, oh, what kind of Joe are we getting tonight? And he goes, and he just does that for like 48 minutes straight. Still going strong at the end, and then bolts out of the room. I thought, man, what did they shoot him up with before that? And I don't know. None of the uppers come up on his presidential physical. But then again, neither does the Ambien. So here you got Hunter Biden admitting, yeah, we were engaging in medical interventions that we didn't tell you about. Then Hunter is asked about current presidential policy. Here's what he has to say.
For someone, am I going to be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration. F- you. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your garden? Who do you think is here by the sheer just grit and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance. And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are the criminals?
So another thing that becomes clear is Hunter appears to have developed Tourette's in his old age. This is a sign. Look, at various points in my life, I've talked more like a sailor than others, but I really try not to now. Not even at the bar. I try to avoid it generally because it's a venial sin, so it's not good. It weakens your relationship with God. And it at a certain point, it just displays a lack of discipline in your ability to speak. When you just insert the F word every third word, and you know the effing thing, and you know the effing gardener, and the effing this and effing that, you just sound like your brain doesn't work. And for Hunter, that's probably true. But if you take all the effins out of it, what is his argument? His argument is we need amnesty for illegals, and we need more so that we can have a slave class, so we can have a serf class, a class of people who work for us for very low wages without worker protections, and who clean our homes and pick our grapes and who do whatever we tell them to do. And they don't have recourse to protections and to decent wages. That's what he's saying. And that's always what it's been about, at least for the business community and for wealthy liberal elites. There's another bonus for the Democrats, which is that statistically, it's likely to give them a permanent electoral majority. Though Hispanics have trended a little bit Republican in recent years, still overwhelmingly Democrat. But beyond just cynically trying to get votes, that's what it's been about for a much broader range of people who are not Democrat Party operatives. It's been about cheap labor. That's true for businesses. That's true for people who have house cleaners and gardeners and all that. Can you believe these people? They want to boot out our effing house cleaner. So he's just unvarnished here. Hunter Unchained. But then the juiciest part of the interview is when Hunter goes off on the Democrat establishment today.
Opinions, but him and everybody around him are not to be nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. George Clooney is not a actor. He is I don't know what he is. He's a brand. And by the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como. And he's great friends with Barack Obama. What do you have to do with anything. Why do I have to listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the New York Times to me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of David Axelrod. And David Plouffe, and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars.
Love this, Rand. And I get it. This is a cri de coeur from a guy whose dad got done dirty by the Democrat establishment. But the irony of it is, Hunter Biden is a product, as much a product as anyone, of that very same Democrat establishment. Joe Biden was the face of the Democrat establishment until he wasn't useful to them anymore and they threw him to the side. And now Hunter can be honest. And what is he saying? He's saying the entire Democrat Party, the whole apparatus, the entire machine is run by frauds. They're all frauds. George Clooney, Hollywood face of the Democrats. Hunter, he sounds like a MAGA Republican here. He says, what the F does George Clooney know about anything? Thank you. I know. I agree. George Clooney's role in Hail Caesar, a movie about Hollywood and left-wing politics, George Clooney's role is as George Clooney, as a guy who doesn't know anything about anything and who's taken to fashionable flights of fancy by dubious ideologies. And he says, David Axelrod, these guys like won one campaign. It's only because of Barack Obama. He doesn't know anything. Why are we listening to him? Who else? David Plouffe, same thing. Who else? James Carville? James Carville hasn't done anything really in politics since the early 90s. Why are we listening to these people? Now, of course, that wasn't Hunter's tune 5 years ago. 5 years ago, they were all saying, oh, these are the great, serious leaders. Thank you. We love you, George. Oh, yeah. Everyone should. But now it's just come undone. The whole thing has come undone. It's an emperor has no clothes kind of moment. Really, really beautiful. And that's a great interview. The whole interview could be summed up in a single sentence, that the Democrat Party today, in the year of our Lord 2025, is complete BS. All right. I've got to leave. There's so much more I want to talk about, man, but I got to go because I'm going to Washington, D.C. for a very, very exciting project, which I'll tell you more about momentarily. No membrum segmentum today. I got to bolt. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. See you tomorrow.